It's time to go beyond the headlines, cause I don't put in overtime just so I can headline. Okay, now it's Fox Sports, I'm live with Renee. Going hard every day, sports rapping every play. Different segments for your favorites, coming at you daily with positive vibes, yeah, we some game changers. Basketball, football, soccer, with different interviews, you never know who may pop up. Listen, only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington.
Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington. Joining me to talk about the NFL and the Sixers, host of Sixers Talk from NBC Philadelphia, Danny Pommells. Danny, welcome to the show.
Hey, Renee, thanks for having me.
No problem. Glad you can join us. There's a lot to get into. Let's start off with the Eagles. Last week, devastating loss to the Falcons. I was there at Mercedes-Benz Stadium watching it happen.
100% correct.
Lost by 4. And then this week, a redemption week, thinking they're going to come back, get back and win color. They lose to the Detroit Lions at home. What is your take on the Eagles right now that are injury-ridden and just struggling to close out games?
Man, it is not a good time to be an Eagles fan. The team is 1-2.
No.
The Cowboys are undefeated. It seems like the Giants are getting themselves together, albeit at Saquon Barkley's expense because he's dealing with that high ankle sprain. But they got Daniel Jones at quarterback. So it's tough for Eagles fans who always walk around with their chest out because they're so proud of their team. But when you look at the Lions game and the Falcons game, two different ways to lose. A total of 7 points are these two losses combined. So you look at the way the Falcons game went, and it was so ugly the way guys were dropping like flies offensively with Desean Jackson not playing, Alshon Jeffrey, Dallas Goedert was out, and other guys in the concussion protocol throughout the game. And then to come home after a game like that where the Falcons were dancing in the locker room and celebrating all crazy, and then to lose to the Lions, who, I don't know if you saw, they came to Philly and the Detroit Lions Twitter account posted a photo of a Lions flag at the base of the Rocky statue. So that already had, people, revved up, ready to go, on top of the fact that they were coming off the loss to the Falcons. And the Eagles, man, they just notoriously started so slow. And this season, they've been outscored in the first half, by some ridiculous margin. I think it's 50-23 in the first half they've been outscored. So they start slow, but they were able to get 3 points on the board against the Lions, but still trailed at the half, and they just couldn't have the consistency that they wanted. They had 3 fumbles, 7 drop passes, 0 sacks, so they're not even getting any pressure on the quarterback defensively. And they seem to telegraph their blitzes a lot because you can tell, Jim Schwartz notoriously is a guy who doesn't like to blitz and plays a bit off and doesn't play a lot of bump and run. But when they are going to blitz, they just show it so early in the count, and it's easy for the opposing quarterback to pick it up if there's a veteran, especially. So I think the Eagles, it's twofold. It's like a trickle-down effect by the fact that they've had the injuries defensively to Malik Jackson and Tim Jernigan, 2 guys who you were really dependent on in your defensive rotation, and the injuries on the offensive side of the ball, coupled with the drops. So all of that is like a perfect storm. So not only are the Eagles in a hole where they've lost 2 games out of their first 3, they need to figure some things out, and they're shooting themselves in the foot. So it's like they're not doing themselves any favors, and their schedule is so jam-packed. They play 4 teams in the next 7 games that are 3-0 currently. So Pats, the Buffalo Bills, the Cowboys, and the Packers. So it's kind of their situation right now. Frustrating, to say the least.
Yes. You took the words right out of my mouth because I was going to say not only has it been bad these last couple of games, it's about to get even harder the next 7 games because we don't have an easy schedule moving forward as Eagles fans. It is only about to get rougher. You look at the Patriots schedule, you look at even the Cowboys, what they've been doing so far. I mean, it's a tough start for an Eagles fan to have 2 really disappointing losses like that. I mean, there was the fire video that went out. I don't know if you saw it. I'm sure you have by now. But the guy that was catching children, rescuing children in fire. I'm like, this is just the epitome of everything going on right now. I don't know, for those of you that may not have seen it, a Philly man took a huge jab. He didn't even throw shade. It was a full-on shot at Nelson Aguilar because he said him and his man the guy just started throwing babies out the window, and we was catching them, unlike Aguilar. I'm like, dang, you're saving kids from a burning building, and we're still throwing shade at the Eagles. You're
in
still
the middle of
attacking
his
the
Good Samaritan moment.
In the middle of his Good Samaritan serious interview. But honestly, that's really right now, the Eagles are, as always, injuries has always been a question. You know, before the season even started, we were talking about whether or not Carson Wentz would stay healthy. And it's more than just him. If you look down the line, you talk about Desean Jackson, Nelson Aguilar going out. You know, it has been an injury-ridden couple of weeks to just drop so many players, and now you have guys stepping in as reserves, and then the defensive line underperforming. It's just been hard to watch. And as you mentioned, what makes it worse is not only are the Cowboys winning, and I see Cowboys fans posting things like, get on the Cowboys bandwagon now. The Giants, who is a team that we've been able to count on to lose behind former starting quarterback Eli Manning and all the mess they always have going on in New York, they're now doing well. They bench Eli Manning. You know, they start Daniel Jones. Unfortunately, Saquon Barkley is out for several weeks with a high ankle sprain. But they get their first win of the season, and it's like you saw a change. The rookie quarterback made history in his debut, throwing at least 300 passing yards, 2 touchdown passes, 2 rushing touchdowns. He had the whole football fan base talking about him because of the way that he stepped in, and he looked fast, he looked good. And honestly, as an Eagles fan, I'm a little worried.
I mean,
take on
it's
the
annoying.
Giants. I mean, should we be worried?
I don't think we should be worried at all. I mean, you look at Saquon Barkley, and, you know, he's from the area, and it's difficult. Or, you know, you hate to see that happen, especially to a player like him, because he's, you know, so dynamic and fun to watch, and to see him, you know, get injured that way. You know, I don't think they should be worried about the Giants, but it's just like salt on the wound. Like, you know, you have these, you know, Mondays after, you know, the Eagles lose, and the city is a little different. It's a little weird. Not everybody has the same, you know, jovial energy. You're kind of like ruminating in the loss a little bit the day after. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned they played 2 games in 5 days. The Packers on Thursday night, who were undefeated. Aaron Rodgers hasn't lost to the Eagles in, I don't think, ever in his career. So, you know, to me, it's upsetting that, you know, on top of the Eagles losing, that the Giants won and the Cowboys won. But at the same time, you got to look internally and deal with your own issues rather than worry about what everybody else is doing, because they have enough issues of their own, particularly trying to figure out if they should trade for Jalen Ramsey or upgrade there or when guys are going to get healthy. But you mentioned Desean Jackson. It's funny because that's part of the reason why maybe some teams weren't so bullish on signing Desean, because he's an older receiver, but because he has a tendency to get nicked up and not be, you know, play a full 16 games.
Yeah, that's true. And that was something that was also a question mark coming into it. And here we are, going into week 4, and Desean Jackson, you know, has already been injured. So let's get off the Eagles, because as you mentioned, there's enough salt on the wound right now. We don't have to beat a dead horse. Hopefully things will turn around. And I don't even want to really get into Antonio Brown too much, because we've been seeing him every single minute. Something new is popping up. I just saw recently that he re-enrolled at Central Michigan, so he's going back to school.
He said it back to school.
Yeah, he needs to go back to school to figure some things out and stop throwing himself and burning bridges, throwing himself in the fire even more. But let's move on from him too. We've talked about him enough in the sports world. Quarterbacks. I love that there were 13 starting quarterbacks under the age of 25, and it seems like there's a change in the NFL right now with a new era of quarterbacks. We saw Cam Newton, who's been injured, struggled in weeks 1 and 2 last week. He was replaced with Kyle Allen, who did a great job for the Panthers at quarterback. Of course, there's guys like Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. You know, it's a very exciting time for the new youth of quarterbacks. I mean, what is the passing game in general? You know what I mean? Yeah.
You know, you can challenge whether or not a play was pass interference. Like, let that soak in when it comes to, like, the offensive opportunities that are out there for NFL teams as opposed to the defensive teams. I mean, we've seen the defender be able to put their hands on the receiver taken away, so that makes it easier to throw the football and catch the football. Although if you're wearing an Eagles jersey, that doesn't seem to matter. But a little shade, a little too much.
It's hard not to. It's hard not to.
But
too easy.
I mean, you're most impressed. Anybody has to be most impressed by Patrick Mahomes, just the way that he's playing, and he just looks the part every time he goes out there. It just seems to come to him in a way that's so natural. The team is undefeated. He goes head-to-head with Lamar Jackson, and they come out on top. I mean, it's just all good vibes at this point for anybody who was in on the Patrick Mahomes bandwagon early. But to see Lamar Jackson come into his own and be, the guy people thought should be, a running back, and then, he's turning into a prolific quarterback, or Kyler Murray, coming to his own. So, I mean, it's easier to throw the football and catch the football because of the rule changes and things like that. But at the same time, I think we're seeing guys figure out how to play the quarterback position in a more dynamic way with the athletes the three guys I just mentioned with Mahomes, Jackson, and Kyler Murray. It's just a different style of playing the quarterback position. Mm-hmm. And also that sidearm thing that Pat Mahomes has mastered, just, you put some athletes around him and he's able to deliver the ball in crazy arm slots. Makes it even easier.
Yeah, so I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit because I was just watching on First Take. Ryan Clark, who always has so many words of wisdom, take that how you want it, he put out a statement that Patrick Mahomes is better than Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Aaron Rodgers. Do you think his ceiling is higher than theirs? What are your thoughts?
Now
opinion,
better.
So there's no wrong answer.
Now better as in will be better, or is better right now? Because I do agree that he's
will be better.
Oh, that's tough. I mean, I just like I said, it's just a different game. You can't hit the quarterback in the head, or that's an immediate pass interference. Roughing the passer call. Whereas in the past, instant no contact with the quarterback in that way was encouraged or, overlooked. So it's just a different type of league. So it's tough to make those comparisons. But Tom Brady's still going strong. Now, if Patrick Mahomes can get to 42 and still be as prolific as him, it's tough to throw those, better than around like that. All due respect to Ryan Clark, who played the game at the highest level, but I'm looking at Pat Mahomes, and I'm thinking he can do pretty much anything. My son actually wants to beat Pat Mahomes for Halloween, so
there you go.
How that turns out. He's a Steelers fan, ironically, but I know he respects talent when he sees it. But
I was going to say that's very conflicting because you're an Eagles fan, and not that you have anything against the Chiefs, but it's not the Eagles.
Yeah,
and
you know what? He likes Troy Polamalu. That's why he's a Steelers fan. And then Pat Mahomes is like Steph Curry of football. So, but you know what? I think I agree with Ryan Clark that he is a better quarterback now. He won't be. It's hard to compare them as far as because it's just a different type of game. I just feel like quarterbacks now get so many more benefits.
I do think it's hard in general to make those lofty predictions because things happen. And I'm not speaking injuries on anybody, but injuries happen. Even like you said, the game's changing. You don't know
and the style of play.
Chiefs are going to change the style of play. Right. You don't know if he's going to stay with Kansas City or like we just don't know so many things. So like as of now, we could say possibly if he continues to progress at the rate that he's playing right now, yes. But we don't know what's going to change.
Fun to watch,
so
that's for sure.
Exactly. There's so many factors, and in sports in general, that's always the case. Speaking of change, over with the Jaguars, we got to get into it. So we have seen Jalen Ramsey request a trade out of Jacksonville. It was denied, and then as of today, he called in sick, did not attend practice. What is really going to happen with Jalen Ramsey moving forward? He's already revealed that he's upset with the team management and that was kind of like the final straw that really broke the camel's back, so to speak. You know, what are your thoughts?
My boy legit called out sick, though. That's just...
He called out sick?
Mama legit called out sick. Like, I will not be in today. Thank you very much.
You won't trade me. That's fine. I'm sick.
Oh, my gosh. The petty, though. Petty. Like, Petty Murphy. But, hey, you know what? I'm all about this new NFL player empowerment era. Like, you know, maybe they're taking the page out of the NBA's book where, you know, the players have a lot more influence and say, and sometimes to a fault, because I didn't like the way the Anthony Davis thing went, but not to jump sports, but I'm all for it. Look at these guys. I mean, they rarely get guaranteed money. They don't have the fully guaranteed contracts that you see in baseball and basketball and hockey, and they're really, I don't want to be overly dramatic and say risking their lives, but there are people who died on the football field, so technically they are risking their lives out there playing football. So I'm all about the player empowerment era, because I look at things like what they did to Colin Kaepernick, and they're able to push him out of the league. You know, whether you believe it's collusion or not, he was blackballed because he's not able to get a job, even though he's, you know, healthy and can be gainfully employed. So if things like that are able to happen, I feel like the owners have too much influence, and there needs to be a balance, checks and balances of you know, whether it's the players union, you know, being able to influence the next collective bargaining agreement and get more guaranteed money for the players, or make their contracts fully guaranteed. But I'm all about the player empowerment era. Now, Jalen Ramsey, I think he could be prolific, so I would love to see him on the Eagles. I don't know if they want to pay him. Yeah, I don't know if they want to pay him what he's worth, though, and that's the thing where I don't know. I know Howie can sometimes, you know, he's, you know, they spent money. That stigma is long gone about spending money for the Eagles. I mean, they gave DeMarco Murray a bunch of cash just because, but I don't know if they want to pay Jalen after this season, so to trade, you know, a couple of picks and a player for a temporary fix, I think the price is too high, but I think they could use him in spades. So I would like to see them work something out with him. He's not the first player that's going to want to be off of a horrible team or in a horrible situation, and he won't be the last. So I like him. I like the whole Brinks truck thing with Ha Ha Davis at training camp. I thought that was pretty funny. But I want to see him playing football in meaningful games. Like, that's, as fans, people who watch, you know, sports, like, we want to see the best players out there. So I want to see him competing and being in meaningful games.
Yeah, you bring up some really good points. The fact that NFL players are stepping up more to, you know, have more of an opinion and a voice versus just sitting back and
just to take control of their own future, you know? Exactly.
Because along with being the possibility of dying on the field, which isn't an extreme but has happened, look at the longevity of football players' health. And of course, with all the studies that are coming out on CTE, look at all that it affects with your mental health, your physical health. So they really are putting their livelihood.
That's why I won't let my son play. That's why
my future kids will not play.
Yeah, so,
I agree. But also, you talk about the fact that in football versus basketball, the players don't have as much say. And the one thing that Antonio Brown, for all that has been said, one thing that really did stand out to me that he said was, well, Robert Kraft was caught in a parlor, and he still got a job, you know. And that was we found him, we saw him doing wrong, and Antonio Brown's dealing with all this, and it's still alleged what is or is not true. But you know, there's a double standard there in the NFL because the players are treated differently. Whereas in the NBA, you look at players like LeBron, Steph, KD, you know, Russell Westbrook, they have more of a input on their future and where they want to play, how they want to play, how much they want to make. So there are a lot of issues here beyond just, you know, Jalen Ramsey having frustration with the Jaguars. This is an NFL issue that we're slowly seeing change, where players are having more, you know, control over their futures. So we have touched on the NBA. Let's get into it a little bit because it is almost October, which I cannot believe it's almost October already.
I know, right?
Fall has started, which means basketball is coming soon.
Still 90 degrees here in Philly, by the way. But.
It is still 90 degrees. It's like bipolar weather, whatever, global warming. So what have you been seeing as we get ready to get into basketball season? Give us a little behind-the-scenes scoop on what's going on with the Sixers, and if you think this is really their year, they're going to move towards being an Eastern Conference championship team again.
I know, right? Just
time.
Eastern Conference champ. You didn't even say winning the whole thing. Just getting out of the East, right?
Just get out the East, because the West is stacked. So just get out the East.
Yeah, I think the Sixers are in an incredible position. This is what all the losing was about, right? Whether you believe that they tanked or not, but if you put yourself in position to get high draft picks and sign marquee free agents, this is the season. This is it. And everybody's picking them to come out of the East. That remains to be seen. I think that this will be the year where they can get out of the East. Now, whether they'll be able to win a championship, I want to see how these Western Conference teams come together because there's so much movement in such an unprecedented way this offseason. Like, James Harden and Russell Westbrook are both on the Houston Rockets. Like, let that sink in for a minute. Let alone Paul George and Kawhi Leonard with the Clippers. But I think for me, I'm looking at the Sixers, and there's got to be extreme commitment that there's a level that they're at now, but there's another level they need to get to, and that is going to involve Joel Embiid being, health conscious. He supposedly lost 25 pounds this offseason. That checks one box. Joel Embiid being health conscious, and the team being conscious of protecting him and kind of guiding him into the postseason. So I'm looking for him to play 60 games or less around that. So he's going to have some good times resting this season because Al Horford's there and can play the 5 position or the 4 very well and not have such a drop-off that the Sixers saw in the last postseason with Greg Monroe and guys of his ilk. So the second thing is Ben Simmons. He has to develop as a point guard, as a attacking point guard, a guard that can shoot. And, I hate to put all the pressure on his shoulders, but as he goes, the team goes because he has the ball in his hands the majority of the time. So if he can't play half-court basketball and only gets his points in transition, that reduces what they're able to do. So they clearly made a real push to be a defensive-minded team. Josh Richardson, probably the guy I'm looking to really see blossom with less pressure, more opportunity to create. Tobias Harris is going to be in his more natural position at the 3, where he played more of the stretch 4 last year with Jimmy Butler at the 3. So this training camp is going to be really important. Media Day is September 30th. Training camp is the 1st through the 4th. They have the blue and white scrimmage on the 5th. Then the season opens October 23rd with the Celtics. So, we're less than a month or just about a month away from opening, tipping it up. So I'm looking for the Sixers to have some everything I've heard, everyone is at the facility. They reported early that the chemistry, the camaraderie is what's going to be, the measuring stick. Josh Richardson, a guy who kind of got it out the mud, so to speak, where he wasn't like a highly recruited player. He wasn't a guy that people thought was going to be a stalwart player. He's worked to get to where he is, and he's so excited to have the practice opportunities and, measure up against these guys to see who's in the gym first and who's last and kind of compete for time and opportunity within the team. So I think that's the thing I'm most looking forward to, is seeing how they can challenge each other to push their games to the next level.
Yeah, I do definitely think you said it, I said it, Charles Barkley said it, Stephen A. Smith, everyone's saying it. We're in great company with the fact that the Sixers do have the roster on paper to come out of the East. Now, we know in the past there are issues, as you mentioned, they didn't have depth. When Joel Embiid wasn't on the floor, who was going to be the presence in the paint, who was going to be crashing the boards? You have Al Horford now. They didn't really have the experience in the playoffs, and we saw that the last two seasons, more 2 years ago versus last year. Last year was more the issue of the 3 bounces or 4 bounces of Kawhi Leonard's incredible game-winning shot. But they've been right on the cusp of coming out of the East and turning that corner to be, a consistent top team, because we've seen it in waves. They'll have a tremendous game and you'll see them look like a championship team, and then they'll have a crap game where, they're playing what I call very predictable, because Ben Simmons doesn't have that versatility. Joel Embiid's not always on the floor. It's a lot of question marks. But if this year they can get rid of some of those question marks, if Joel Embiid's healthy and able to play more games in the regular season, if Ben Simmons is able to add to his game by being more of a threat from the perimeter, now this is a team that you don't really know how to defend them, because you can't just expect the same thing every time. They have more versatility in their offense, and defensively they should be strong. So now if they can add that offensive side consistently, yeah, I agree. They're coming out of the East.
Yeah, Renee, think about it. Me and my guy Paul Hudrick, we talk about, our co-host on the Sixers Talk podcast. We talk about the fact that not only you look at the offensive end is one thing, but defensively, you got Joel Embiid as the last line of defense, so that automatically makes your team better than a lot of other teams. But with the addition of Josh Richardson, instead of Ben Simmons having to guard those prolific point guards every night, all of a sudden you got a plus defender in Ben who's able to let Josh Richardson guard those guys, and he can go guard maybe another player who, will give him an opportunity not to have to work so hard on both ends of the floor. You know what I'm saying? So Josh Richardson's versatility really adds to their game, and he also played a lot of point guard minutes with the Miami Heat.
Exactly.
So be sure to check out the Sixers Talk podcast on NBC Sports Philadelphia and the My Team's app.
You beat me to it, because that was my next thing I was going to say. I give you a chance to promote
yeah, baby.
So that being said, Danny, let our listeners know where they can follow you.
You can follow me on all social media platforms at my first initial and last name, D. Pommells, NBCS, S for sports. And I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at D. Pommells, NBCS. And you can always catch me on NBC Sports Philadelphia and NBC 10 as well, because I double dip. I'm a Swiss Army knife, Renee. I do a lot of different.
You gotta be.
Yeah.
Gotta be.
Much like yourself.
Thank you. I try. You got to wear a lot of hats in this industry. But thank you so much for joining us this week on Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington, weighing in on the Eagles, who we hope will pick it up, the Sixers, and other things going on across the NFL. So I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Renee. Thanks for having me.